There exists a fleeting but powerful moment between what happens to you and what you choose to do next. Most people miss it entirely. They react instantly, emotionally, as though their nervous system is in command. But a Stoic lives differently. He doesn't allow the outside world to manipulate his inner state. Instead, he takes a breath, steps back, and responds, not from panic, but from presence. That single pause becomes his power. Reaction is automatic. It's fast, heated, and often regrettable. A harsh word, a sudden change, a moment of disrespect, and before you know it, you're lashing out or shutting down. It feels like strength, but it's just surrender in disguise. Your peace is gone. Your integrity is shaken. Your habit becomes, I feel, so I act. But Stoics mastered a different art. They didn't control life. They mastered their response to it. Within the narrow space between stimulus and response lies real freedom. The freedom to remain calm when everything in you wants to explode. The freedom to rise above the chaos, not drown in it. The freedom to act with clarity rather than react with emotion. And that space, it's tiny, easy to miss. But once you become aware of it, everything begins to shift. You start to see the truth. You are not your reaction. You are the one witnessing it. And that awareness gives you power. Marcus Aurelius, in the middle of war and betrayal, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." He understood that the true battlefield is internal. Stoicism isn't about silence out of weakness. It's stillness born from wisdom. To respond rather than react means you've trained your body not to be hijacked by every trigger. It means you're anchored, not in what was said or done, but in who you choose to be. When you're provoked, the question isn't how do I fight back, but how do I want to show up right now? And in that moment, power shifts. You reclaim your authority. That insult, it no longer controls your emotions. That failure, it no longer defines your worth. That chaos, it becomes your training ground, because no one regrets pausing. But we often regret what we did in anger, what we typed in pain, what we said in haste. Reaction is costly. Response is valuable, not because it's passive, but because it's intentional. This isn't suppression. It's conscious redirection. It's choosing not only what to say, but whether to say it at all. Not just how to act, but why. So when pressure rises, breathe. Let the emotion crest and fall. Then move, like an artist with purpose, not a machine in panic. True power doesn't come from the volume of your voice, but the quiet clarity of your choices. But there's one essential piece, your nervous system. People think clarity is a mindset, but it begins as a state of the body. When you're flooded with adrenaline, when your breath is shallow and your heart races, you're not seeking wisdom. You're seeking safety. Your brain isn't asking, what's wise? It's shouting, survive, control, escape. That's why many of our regrets don't begin in thought. They begin in tension. The wisest principles cannot take root in a body locked in survival mode. If you want clarity, you must calm the storm within. Slow your breath. Ground yourself. Only then can you access the space to choose, the power to respond, and the strength to become who you truly are. The ancient Stoics didn't possess modern neuroscience, but they understood one essential truth. Composure is a foundation of control. Epictetus warned that no one is truly free unless they first command themselves. And that command begins with self-regulation. It begins the moment you become aware of the tightness in your chest, the tension in your jaw, the heat rising in your skin. Instead of escalating, the Stoic slows down. He softens his breath. He grounds his awareness. Because the truth is, most of your worst reactions don't come from the event itself. They arise from how your body interpreted that event. And interpretation is shaped by state. You don't need to be in a survival mode to respond to a message, but if you are in fight or flight, your response won't come from you. It'll come from the storm within you. Learning to calm your nervous system isn't just self-help advice. It's one of the most underrated Stoic disciplines. We often picture the Stoic as someone emotionally unmoved by chaos, but their stillness wasn't only emotional, it was physical. It was seen in their breath, in their posture, in the decision to wait before speaking. It's the art of not rushing, especially when everything urges you to. This practice is not innate. It is a skill and it can be learned. The next time you feel emotionally triggered, don't try to force your mind into stillness. Begin instead with your body. Inhale slowly through the nose. Plant your feet on the ground. Unclench your hands. Send your nervous system the signal. There is no predator here. We are not in danger. We are simply experiencing challenge. Over time, your body will start to believe you. And once the body feels safe, the mind regains access to clarity. Each time you choose calm over chaos, you strengthen your internal fortress. You widen the space between stimulus and response, giving wisdom room to breathe. You become less reactive, more resilient. The Stoic doesn't seek power over others. He seeks mastery over himself, because from a calm body flows a clear mind, and from a clear mind comes strong, considered actions. This isn't just philosophy, it's biology. That's why the Stoics' first move isn't to reach for an ideal. It's to return to the breath. In that act of slowing down, power is reclaimed. Now consider this. Time itself reveals the truth of our actions. In emotionally charged moments, clarity is almost always clouded. Feelings flood the body, thoughts become frantic, and instincts push for immediate reaction. Ironically, it's during these moments we feel most tempted to act, quickly, emotionally, without pause. But the Stoic knows the more urgent it feels, the more vital it becomes to wait. Time is not your enemy. It is your ally, the filter that reveals what impulse tries to disguise. You experience this. A message arrives, sharp or dismissive. You feel your body tighten. Your fingers twitch, ready to respond. But if you wait just a little longer, something shifts. Not the message, but you. The heat cools, the sting softens. What felt like an attack becomes a misunderstanding. What seemed like betrayal in hindsight was someone else's fear, not your failure. Time does this. It clarifies. It reframes. It turns raw emotion into understanding, if we let it. The Stoics trained themselves to endure discomfort, not because they glorified suffering, but because they knew truth rarely arrives dressed in emotion. Truth comes in silence. It speaks through distance. Seneca once wrote, "Anger, if not restrained, is often more damaging than the offense that caused it." This kind of restraint is not weakness. It is the deepest form of wisdom, the willingness to say, "I don't have to respond now. I can choose clarity over immediacy." But we live in an age addicted to speed. Instant replies, instant conclusions, instant justice. And most of our regrets aren't born from inaction, but from action taken too soon. Words sent in ego. Decisions made in pride. Moves driven by fear. We rush to prove. And in doing so, we break what we were trying to preserve. We win arguments but lose connection. We score points but damage trust. We speak over truth before it's fully formed within us. What time offers is space. Space to reassess not just others, but ourselves. It allows us to observe the internal narrative, the assumptions we've made, the fears fueling our urgency. And when we see these clearly, we don't just choose better words or actions. We become better people. We no longer live as victims of emotional turbulence. Instead, we carry our own calm into any storm. That is the heart of Stoicism, not immunity to the world, but inner stability in the face of it. Allowing stillness to guide your decisions doesn't mean choosing inaction. It means choosing wisely, acting with intention, not urgency. It's the discipline of waiting for clarity rather than chasing it through noise. You come to see that not every situation demands a reaction, and some only deserve a response after you've allowed space for reflection. There's quiet strength in watching time reveal what people and circumstances truly are. One moment never tells a whole story, but patterns do. If you react too quickly, you miss the lesson buried within repetition. Patience becomes your protection. Observing without immediate judgment sharpens your insight. You see the truth unfold not through force, but through attention. So when you feel the urge to speak, act, or fix, pause. Ask yourself, what will this look like in an hour, a day, a week? If your answer shifts with time, so should your urgency. Time doesn't lie. It simply reveals what lies cannot survive. Let stillness become your armor. Let delay become your training. Because the one who guards their time guards their energy. And the one who lets time speak first often speaks with the most truth. There's power in retreat, not from cowardice, but from clarity. Before you step into a moment, step outside it first. Between emotion and action exists a narrow window, a space where choice still lives. Most ignore it. They leap from feeling to doing. But the Stoic learns to hesitate with purpose. Distance is not detachment, it's discernment. When life tests you, through insult, resistance, or failure, your instinct might be to assert, defend, or correct. But what if that instinct itself is a trick of ego? What if reacting quickly is less about control and more about being controlled? Taking a step back is a retreat. It's reclamation. It's the decision to return to your inner center before meeting the world. Marcus Aurelius wrote often of returning to oneself, away from the noise, into the stillness where true judgment resides. So when life demands reaction, return inward, breathe, observe, reflect not only on what's happening, but on who you are in that moment. Are you grounded or stirred, driven by fear or led by clarity? Because if you don't know the emotion behind your action, you risk letting that emotion decide for you. Acting quickly might satisfy the ego, but it rarely satisfies the soul. Thoughtful response brings actual control. This is where Stoicism becomes more than philosophy. It becomes daily practice. The practice of creating distance between the impulse and the execution. The skill of pulling your awareness back far enough to see the full landscape, not just a moment. You begin to ask not, how do I win this moment, but who am I becoming through this moment? That shift changes everything. You stop reacting from anxiety and begin acting from alignment. You speak less but with deeper resonance. You move slower but with greater strength. You're no longer tossed by every emotional wave. You become the unmoved shoreline, steady, present, perceptive. Look back, and you'll see that many mistakes in your life weren't the result of ignorance, but of impatience. Words spoken too early, decisions made too soon, doors closed before you saw what was really behind them. Most could have been spared if you had only paused. So the next time you feel pressure rising, don't just assess the situation. Assess yourself within it. Where are you being pulled? What's this moment inviting you to learn? What version of you is being summoned? The reactive or the reflective? Growth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it arrives in silence and restraint, in the simple power of not rushing. And in that pause, in that watchful stillness, you meet not the world, but yourself. The more aware you become, the less reactive you grow, and therein lies the essence of real Stoic strength. Stoicism doesn't offer a life without chaos. It equips you with the tools not to become chaos. So before you jump in, take a breath, anchor yourself. Decide who you want to be before you decide what to do. Because when you master the pause, you shift the entire outcome, and no external force can take that power away from you. Reactivity feels like control, until you realize you've lost it. It creeps in wearing the mask of confidence, urgency, even dignity. But look closer, and you'll see it's just unregulated emotion pretending to be purpose. When anger or insecurity speaks on your behalf, it's no longer you leading the way. It's a force you didn't choose. Stoic thinkers warned us. It's not the events that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. And reactivity gives you no time to interpret. It only rushes you to respond. In reactivity, there is no reflection. There is only impulse. A sharp word escalates into conflict. A delay ruins your whole day. A look triggers an imaginary offense. These aren't responses. They're reflexes. And reflexes unchecked make you a servant of the external world. At its root, reactivity is the absence of pause, and that pause is everything. It's the moment where self-awareness returns. It's where you ask, who do I want to be right now? And choose with clarity, not chaos. Think of the calmest, most centered people you've met, the ones who hold their ground without raising their voice. They don't panic. They don't scramble. They don't snap. That's not luck. It's practice. It's wisdom built through patience. Because real power doesn't show up in how fast you react, but in how long you can stay grounded without letting emotion take the lead. Every unexamined reaction is a trade. Your peace, your integrity, your clarity, all handed away in an instant. When you react without reflection, you let the outside world govern your internal reality. You let someone else's behavior control your choices. You surrender the wheel, and then comes regret. You replay words you wish you hadn't said, actions you wish you delayed. That's why Stoicism teaches not suppression, but self-mastery. It teaches you feel fully, but not be ruled by those feelings. You allow the emotion to arise, but you don't obey it. This is where discipline becomes a difference. You notice the trigger. You feel the tension. You sense a heat in your body. And then, instead of lashing out, you do something different. You pause. You breathe. You return to yourself. You remind your mind, this is only a moment. It doesn't define me. How I respond to it does. Each time you choose restraint over reaction, you fortify your self-respect. You stop being controlled by the world. You begin writing your own response. And over time, this becomes your nature. You stop chasing every insult. You stop explaining yourself to every critic. You stop trying to win every battle. Not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. You no longer need to prove yourself to people who haven't even proven themselves to peace. That is real freedom. That is emotional maturity. That is Stoicism in action, not just a theory, but a way of walking through the world with composure. Just because you feel something doesn't mean you must act on it. Just because someone provokes you doesn't mean they deserve your reaction. Just because a moment feels urgent doesn't mean it's worthy of your peace. Hold your response like a sacred offering, because it is. To respond is to reflect. And true reflection is the root of wisdom. Wisdom doesn't shout. It doesn't rush to speak. It listens with patience. It moves with purpose. In a world addicted to noise, speed, and conflict, a slow, clear response is revolutionary. The Stoics didn't just preach this, they embodied it. They knew that what separates the wise from the reactive isn't intelligence. It's discernment, the ability to step back, to assess, to choose. Every encounter is a test. Every conflict, a mirror. How you respond trains your mind to see clearly, or clouds your judgment with ego. You can be educated and still reactive. You can be successful and still impulsive. But if you can't slow down long enough to act with intention, your intelligence becomes a weapon you can't wield, a sword in trembling hands. Think about it. Most of our regret isn't born from what happened. It comes from how we reacted to what happened. Responding with wisdom means you've done the inner work. You've challenged your assumptions. You've unhooked from your pride. You've taught your nervous system to hold still instead of attacking. And that kind of strength, it can't be faked. People feel it. They may not know why they trust you, but they do. They sense stability in you. They feel grounded in your calm. And that's because you are rooted. Rooted people don't sway with every storm. They observe, they reflect, they choose. A wise response isn't about being nice. It's about being anchored. It's knowing that not every fire deserves your oxygen. That not every situation is yours to fix. That not every insult needs a reply.